these are the people that are at the coalface of the human element of cannabis, the law changes, people who can facilitate positive change, and you know, really we've got like a bit of a who's who of people in the cannabis industry right there at the front line. So I might just get them to introduce themselves to start off, and then basically I've just got a few topic points, conversation points that I want to bounce off a few of them and get their thoughts, and also if you have any questions as well, feel free to jump in, but I might just start down the end there with Jenny. Do you mind to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Jenny Hallam. I'm a cannabis oil producer from South Australia. I was raided last year and I have been charged, and I'm facing 18 years in jail for supplying free cannabis oil to people. So I'm just fighting those charges, and my trial starts in February next year.
It's so sad to hear. There it is, it's the discrimination. My name is Ray Thorpe. I start up the Happy Herb Company chain, and even though it's promoting other herbs than cannabis, after all, cannabis is the #1 herb and all the others follow suit, and also there's discrimination on all herbal cures, and that's what motivated me to open up my first shop here in Nimbin, which spread to 54 shops around the world. But I did it under the umbrella of the hemp embassy, thinking that, you know, I could get away with selling the illegal herbs under the umbrella of the bigger illegal herb, and I've always supported the cause because, as I said, hemp and cannabis is the #1 herb.
Thanks, Ray. I'm Fiona Patten. I'm a Member of Parliament in Victoria, and I founded the Sex Party, and then some would say saw up reason and changed it. We're now called the Voice of Reason, and I think I really do try to bring a voice of reason to drug law reform generally and cannabis reform especially. I'm very proud to speak as a politician who enjoys smoking pot, and at any time I will disclose that openly and proudly, and that is what we are going to have to do, and I think trying to provide that voice and say that even politicians smoke pot is one way that I can help fight that discrimination.
My name is Julie Chiadello, and I'm co-owner at Skunk Magazine and The Highway. I've been in the cannabis industry for 10 years. I'm also an herbalist, and I believe, also as you do, that we're fighting on behalf of a renaissance. So I'm all for a green renaissance for humanity, not the green rush or the greed rush. And I'm very honored to be here in Nimbin because you guys are all inspiring. You're practicing the green renaissance.
My name is Adela Falk. I run an organization that advocates for our brothers and sisters and our neighbors and our loved ones that are arrested and incarcerated for cannabis. So I advocate on the people that don't have a voice and show people how to help those that have been arrested and going through a trial, to show community support and get a not guilty verdict on being. I don't believe anybody belongs to prison for a long. So.
Hi, my name is May Moon, and I'm from Vancouver, British Columbia. I used to run a dispensary called 3 Happy Cats, which was founded in 2011. I've been through the green rush, as they call it, and it's been quite a wild adventure. I also own 12 High Chicks magazine, which has been in print since 2015. Yeah, and I've been watching this since 2005. That's when I joined being an activist and joined the pot organization and group in Vancouver.
I'm Dennis Boisvert. I'm with POW 420, and we have some cards in the back of the room. The idea is that we send them to prisoners so that they feel the warmth and love from people. When they go to jail, they're just cut off from reality. And in the United States, there's people doing life for cannabis. In fact, I got a call from one this morning. And they wonder what I'm doing, and I tell them I'm in Australia at a hemp event, and they, I can't imagine what it's like being in a cell trying to figure out what I'm doing. but they're all happy that I'm doing it. So that's what I'm going to do.
Thank you very much. As I said, a fascinating bunch of people here. We get to ask some questions, so I'm happy about that. The first one I've got here, I just sort of picked out a few topical events from the week, so I'm not sure that some of them are completely on topic. But the first one I came up with, I wanted to talk to two of you who are involved in the cannabis media. So big news this week was, I'm sure you've been following it, with the cannabis in Colorado. Got taken over by a hedge fund, stripped out, and basically it's gone now. That's been the historical paper in Colorado that documented the entire legalization process from the start. And so they're replacing journalists with bots, basically, regurgitated garbage cannabis articles that are going to be coming over. So as people in the cannabis media space, I was wondering, are you feeling the heat? What's your sort of footprint? How do you distinguish yourself from that type of content? I mean, it's a cutthroat industry these days, isn't it?
Wow, what a question. Greg spoke directly to a lot of the work in the last 5 years that we've had to do. So I'm honored to answer this question, actually, because it's very poignant. Because it is a crazy, crazy atmosphere to work under prohibition anyways. We have PTSD, we have anxiety. When you're constantly being lied to and attacked, go figure, to actually function and be successful at business is quite the task. And so for the magazine, the magazine was rated 5 years ago and was struck a mortal wound to the magazine. And what we had to do is we had to fight very hard to redefine ourselves at that time. And my background is as an herbalist, as a mother, as a woman of the Renaissance, devoted to organics and new ways of being on the planet, marrying ancient wisdom with modern practices. And there's millions of us on the planet. And when I started working with the magazine, I was really inspired with its devotion. It's a 14-year-old publication that has been devoted to organics this whole time. And there's no other cannabis publication right now that can really say that they've been devoted to organics and sustainability. And that's why we definitely feel a kinship with communities like the one here in Nimbin, is because you guys are a pocket, an epicenter that is really evidence that a renaissance is happening and that humans can live in a better way with our resources as stewards of the planet, not abusers of the planet, and as people that help each other rise versus take from each other. So I see you guys all practicing that. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but the reason I'm saying that is because for me personally, as a businesswoman, and my partner John Vergados, also co-owner of the magazine and editor, we've had to do a lot of soul searching in the last year. 2 years ago, we launched the Highway magazine, and it was a free publication that for us was defining what the Green Renaissance was, not the Green Rush. And we were standing like soldiers saying, no, we think the Green Rush is disgusting. I feel nauseous when I hear somebody use the term Green Rush, to be honest, because in this drug war, millions of people have died. The money that we make off of cannabis is blood money. People are rotting in jail right now. Innocent people, millions of innocent people. So for me, it's been particularly treacherous to navigate the waters of the Green Rush. Sorry. And so in terms of answering your question, I think what's relevant for us as a media outlet is to keep on bringing the meaningful back, keep on bringing the sacred back. And this is the way we differentiate ourselves from this soulless, money-making as usual activity, which I have no respect for given the sacredness of the people who are dying to fight to free this plant.
Thank you very much. Did you have anything else you wanted to
Yeah, so I also run a magazine as well, and there has been a lot of, competition with bots, as you put it. And I found that having our stories, going back to, our roots type thing, having writers have their perspective. Instead of it just being used, my magazine is about personal perspective. People in cannabis, their stories, their struggles and their experiences. It's not necessarily mainstream news, but it's the news I feel that people should be learning about, because that's how we're going to connect with each other, if we get a chance to hear everyone's individual story. But it's been very hard with the advertisement. The search engine optimizations is all stuff that's kind of not in my field, so I'm kind of reaching out to the younger group, which sounds crazy, but there is a younger group than me, and they're willing to help me compete or combat these boxes you put in.
Yep. Okay. Great answers. Thank you.
I just want to add one thing. I'm not in a publication, but I read a newspaper, and I understand that what I'm being fed is rhetoric and propaganda. And it doesn't matter if it's for a pro-cannabis industry or the news media. There is not a single legal state in the United States of America. It's regulated. And every single American is federally disobedient, and at any given time they can be raided, arrested, and incarcerated, and put in prison for life without the possibility of parole for cannabis. So I'm not swallowing and regurgitating the rhetoric that's being spewed to us.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so next question is for Fiona. I know Fiona's in the front lines for our community here in Australia. So I'm one of your groupies on Twitter, and I sort of keep up a bit with what you do on there. And so I know you've just been over in Canada, and I know I think about this time the Greens came out with legalising recreational policy. And so I think one of the major things that people miss in this debate is they either go for it's either legal or it's prohibited. But I know there's a spectrum of options that you can choose in that space. And I know that you were differentiating your policy compared to the Greens policy. I wonder if you'd mind just to explain that a bit.
Yeah, I think without the Greens here to fully explain their policy, and I think it's been difficult to get a good understanding of it, because sometimes they're saying our policy is linked to the Uruguayan model, yep, which is a very single up and down model that is very much a government owned and run model, and very much a controlled and licensed model by the government. The Reason's policy has always been a much more deregulated model, and it is we have always been about there being a homegrown component of it. From the initially there be an immediate decriminalisation of use and possession, and then moving to how we work through the legalisation or losing the law progress, and it's got to be step by step, because we're dealing with people who think that we all should be able to get our pleasure out of half a dozen beers and driving really fast in a V8. We've got a really old-fashioned system. So our legalisation is providing regulation and licensing from government, but it's also allowing that licensing to go down to small producers and differentiating between small and large producers, and I think that's important. But from a practical perspective, and I've just been in Canada, and I know that Vancouver's Canada's going through some huge changes. But for me, as a politician, looking at your legislation, there's so many good parts of it that assuage the fears of the politicians that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. So the regulation around the packaging, the regulation around the seed to sale, the objective of protecting children, of removing organised crime. Now, I'm not suggesting that these will all be obtained by that legislation, but when I look at it from a politician who is the only person who says they openly support drug law reform and particularly cannabis in my parliament, to find a way forward, we have to be pretty pragmatic. And I think that some of the details in the Canadian legislation will meet some of the Conservatives in my parliament's fears. So in a nutshell, Reason's policy is is a deregulated market, is a kind of losing the law, but we are going to have, but it's got to be pragmatic and it's got to win over 51% of the politicians in Parliament.
Right, thank you. So I think one of the questions about a particular model is concerns about the commercialisation. Is that something that you give much thought to?
Yeah, and that was, it is, and it's, I loved the idea of a green renaissance versus a green rush, and I hadn't heard those two terms together, and I really love that. It's finding, to get stuff through Parliament, as I say, you've got to get 51% of politicians to support it, and in actual fact, you've got to get a lot more than that. So quite often, you can't let the perfect get in the way of the good. And we have to allow for the fact that Canopy, Aurora are here. You know, we've got that business. What we've got to be able to do is protect the Renaissance and celebrate the Renaissance and bring that area. And we see it in our beer. Like, look at where the craft beer market is in Australia. Look at where our wineries are in Australia. And I think if we could follow some of those models where we really enhance and enable small producers and that boutique style, and we do that also through our home grow, that's how we can maintain it. Because not everybody wants McDonald's marijuana or McDonald's, or Kentucky Fried Cannabis. I might want something that's a bit more Grange, or a very boutique, a boutique bubbly would be my choice.
Great answer, thank you very much. Yep.
I'm also from California.
Right.
I'm born and raised.
Yep.
I'm only in Canada for the last 4 years, and I really appreciate what you're saying, and I think all of us here have experienced that hopefulness in your voice that I've noticed lately is leaving my voice, and we've been talking about it this weekend, to see just how treacherous the level of greed and corruption is that will move in. And as an herbalist, you spoke to it, they don't want and don't like anything that is going to take away from their multi-billion-dollar industry. And the lobbying is so fierce on behalf of the pharmaceutical industry, on behalf of factory farming and chemical use and all of this, that we really are going to be in a sustained fight for several more decades to see an agricentric model, a craft model, a farm-to-table model. And I just want to say honestly that after a decade of fighting, it's like, okay, start to nourish yourself, start to get clear, because this fight is going to continue because of what we're seeing here, where every which way they're going to be money-making off the backs of innocent people. And that seems to be the thing. And I don't know, no matter how many good intentions we have and how hard we work within the political system. Somebody, millions will suffer, millions of innocent people, like the swabbing. Lots of people are being harassed. Why? Why? Where is the science that proves that this type of harassment is warranted? But legislation is not being written based upon science right now. That's all.
Okay, great, thank you. It sort of leads me into the next question I wanted to ask Ray about, especially what Fiona was just talking about. So I know just from my research recently, the agriculture model of cannabis, there's a lot of ways that can be defined. But one way is commodification. At the other end of the spectrum, there's the model called the appellations model, which essentially is what Fiona was talking about, which is the microbrewery, the vineyard type model. And I was wondering, I think this could be a wonderful opportunity for Nimbin personally to protect the brand that they have, but also, if it became federally legalised, what do you think? What sort of role do you think Nimbin could play in that market in the future?
Well, I think Fiona brought it up when she said boutique wineries in that sense, but we've got big pharma coming in now, and I just see that some company has opened up now and invested billions into the cannabis industry, which gives me hope, because they wouldn't be doing that unless they've got inside information, and that's what's so sad because they call themselves a pharmaceutical company. We've got to, that's our next fight, I believe, that we'll have to fight for boutique and craft cannabis, really. Otherwise it's just going to be taken over, and I'm used to it in the herbal industry with the TGA, FDA. They want their cronies to be in control of that big money market, which it will be. So I don't think the fight's over for a long time.
Yeah, right. Okay, great answer. Thank you very much. Do you guys heard of Ethan Nadelman? He's used to be in charge of the DBA over there. Fantastic speaker, but he was talking about the vineyard model once before, and I heard him speaking. Really, I think things like and protecting areas, but you can also, because the agricultural model, sorry, just to get off the point for a bit, is normally it's based on soil conditions and temperature and all that. But if you use this appellations model, you can bring in places like Canada and Colorado by putting growing standards as part of the certification process. So all areas, I mean, you can imagine in the US if you had like the Golden Triangle, Humboldt, then you've got Oregon, and then you've got Colorado. Everyone has their own brand and it can all function, but without it necessarily becoming huge commodification, it can still be like at a micro level. Anyway, personally, in my vision, that's where I see Nimbin in the future, sort of having their own sort of, well, to be honest, I see this like therapeutic enclave up here where people come up and get their cannabis-infused massages and sipping away and just being luxuriated, basically. But anyway, that's probably spoken a bit much when it came out of that. You know, I think I'd love to see Nimbin in that role in the future for sure. Okay, so some people have, this week or last week when the Greens announced their policy, we had Honourable MP Greg Hunt, I will say, come out and basically slam this idea of anyone even considering to legalise cannabis. And I was just wondering if some of our panel members, maybe Jenny, would you like to talk about this message? Like he just started with the gateway theory and it gets fed through the media machine. But there's no comeback on it. You can just say it with impunity and then that's what everyone's talking about. So how do we address that?
Yeah, this is really frustrating and this is happening over and over again. We have politicians, and not just politicians but journalists as well, that get on and give their opinions about someone, one person that they knew, their brother or a cousin or a friend who used cannabis once and had one issue and they blame it on cannabis. They don't mention that the person was also using alcohol, was using other prescription drugs. They just blame it on cannabis because it's the easy thing to blame it on. It's the stigma, it's the whole thing that was brought about from the prohibitionists at the very beginning. The whole idea that it causes mental health issues, that it causes schizophrenia, that it causes addiction. We know these things are all very, very untrue. We have the evidence to back it up. But unfortunately, there are some people that keep regurgitating this stuff over and over again and use it to try and back up their ridiculous beliefs. And Greg Hunt is one of those people. I have sat with him in his office. I have shown him evidence of a child literally dying in front of him. The snap machine shows the child flatline. The child starts going blue. The child is basically dead. They put the oil inside the child's mouth and the child then breathes and wakes up. Now this is literally a miracle, and he saw this, he cried, and he gave us his guarantee he will do everything to give us cannabis immediately. And he has since then actively worked against it. When the first Senate vote came up in the Senate just last year to get the Category A SAS through, he actually contacted all of the senators and told them to vote against it. And he gave them a whole stack of reasons that were just complete bullshit. He said that it was going to destroy the Australian market, that we needed to protect the Australian market, that it would open it up to too many outside sources. He gave all these different reasons that were really untrue. And he sent those letters to all of the senators and scared all the senators into voting no. And a lot of people got angry at those senators. They got angry at Pauline Hanson and they got angry at Lynch and everyone that voted against it. But it wasn't their fault. They did what they were told. Now, I happen to have those letters leaked to me. And I linked those letters to Huffington Post because I think it's important that everybody sees what's going on. Greg Hunt says in the public that he supports the use of medicinal cannabis and he'll do everything to give us access, but he's actually in the background working actively against it. He doesn't believe in it, and he's doing everything he can to slow it down. And that's precisely why they put the access into the hands of the states, and they didn't do a federal model that everybody could follow. They just said, okay, let the states follow it out, figure it out, and they knew that would cause chaos, and they knew that would slow it down by another 5 years. It has all been set up, it has all been manipulated, and it is all coming from Greg Hunt and Malcolm Turnbull. And it's all because of Malcolm Turnbull's links to pharmaceutical companies. That's precisely what's happening, and this is the truth, and this is what everyone needs to know.
After that very impassioned and very true statements, I'd just like to say that the Victorian Drug Law Reform Committee, which I established, brought down its report 2 months ago. And I've encouraged people to read the chapter on cannabis regulation, because this was a committee of 7 members of Parliament, 3 Labor, 3 Liberal and myself, and they were very conservative MPs. Now, that report came to an almost consensus. We had one dissenting report that talked about greater access to medicinal cannabis in a very real and practical way. It also talked about furthering the legalisation of cannabis for all adult use in a very reasonable way. Now, it wasn't the step I wanted, which was remove the law now and start the process. But it was a very big step forward that got consensus. So it is moving, despite what Greg Hunt thinks, despite what Greg Hunt hopes for. There are changes, and the community's moved, and the community will push the parliaments. And it's your voices out there that will help push those parliaments. And we've got to all be loud, and we've all got to provide that voice. They can't arrest us all. Well, they can. Then, then go into the whole privatisation of jails, and maybe that would be, but I don't even, no, too many Americans here, we're not doing that.
I want to let other people
say. Fiona, you were just mentioning, if things move forward because our voices will be heard. I joined politics in 2011 just kind of by fluke, and I realized that's not everybody's bag, and do I look like a politician? Not really. I've never been elected, but I've certainly changed policy. I've helped write policy, and I've certainly put it through. And all it took was me and a group of people and our vote. And literally, a whole bunch of young people got together. We overthrew a table at one point. This is like the chairman of our organization telling us we have more time to talk. Well, there was enough of us to say, no, we vote against that, and we got the chance to keep talking. If you guys do get involved, I don't say what party, join a party. And change it, help push things forward. That's how you actually get your voice heard, by joining what's there and forming it to you, to what you need. Instead of, I realize that going to protest does help a little bit as well, but actually getting involved is the way to make real change happen.
It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to do this. I see my job as a great privilege, but I also see establishing a political party, and Ray was part of that, establishing that party in the first place, as a responsibility. It's what we as good citizens should be doing. If we want to change things, get involved. Yes, attend protests, yes, like things on Facebook, but take it to the next level, get deeper, join a party.
I did want to add one thing, because I'm from California, so I hear and understand these things. And right now, Prop 64 just passed, adult use. A lot of people, most Californians, thought, hey, it's legal, it's great, we're going to vote for this. And the people who were in the industry knew differently. We knew what was going to be going on in terms of an attempt to usurp the industry away from the craft makers, usurp it away from the people who have fought decades for it, and bring big business in and let it roll out. And we've heard Boner now, which is deplorable. The antichrist to cannabis being legal is now a vested partner. So this is the level of hypocrisy that we're dealing with in California. On a practical level, this is what I would say to add to what May said. is that what I see farmers, small craft farmers doing right now to create California as the vineyard capital of the world. Wouldn't it be wonderful if cannabis was like any culture? We would love it. But the thing is that we have to get smart about working together. And what I'm seeing is when I speak of green renaissance per se, we're talking about cooperatives, collectives. What I see in California right now is there's a ton of corruption. There's huge counties that have deserts where no cannabis is being allowed. There's other counties that are opening up but only letting their cronies in. They've taxed product 4 times down the route. They're overtaxing people. I know tens of scores of companies that are dying right now, farmers that are losing their farms. This is happening right now in California under the guise of legalization. And what I see is people are moving fast to create cooperatives. Craft farmers are getting together and they're pooling their product. Some people are giving up their farms and they're moving to product manufacturing. It's a massive evolution and catalyst that's being forced, but not because people want it, because the government has made a system that is quite corrupt and is just as treacherous as it ever was to try and navigate and figure out how you're going to survive. And that's what the Canadians are also dealing with.
I just wanted to follow on from what Fiona was saying about it's our responsibility and to join a party. And I just want to say that being an activist and part of this community, I'm really a little bit disappointed lately about how many people do expect somebody else to do it for them. They expect somebody else to turn up to the rallies. I'm too sick, I'm sorry, I can't get to the rallies. You know, I can't do this, I can't do that. You say write a letter, write an email, oh, I don't know how to write it, I don't know how to structure a letter, can you write it for me? Can you write a form letter so that we can all copy it? Well, no, I'm sorry, but those things don't work. Politicians don't look at form letters. You know, they just look at them and they chuck them aside and they think, okay, if you're too lazy to even structure a letter yourself, then, you know, we can't be bothered reading it. So what I want to say is it is up to everybody out there to stand up. Don't leave it up to people like me. You know, I'm facing 18 years jail, I'm on bail. You know, I shouldn't be doing some of the things I'm still doing, but I have no choice because other people out there won't do it. So unless everybody out there stands up, shows their support, stops being scared, then people like me are going to have more and more pressure put on us, and it's not fair. It's really not fair. It's up to every single one of you. If you want cannabis, then you need to do something about having it legalised. Don't leave it up to somebody else to do it.
The doctor said all of our fates are linked to each other, and he's absolutely right. If you go to jail for 18 years, the next person will go away for a harder time, and the next person even harder. And if enough of you actually get together, you can change the law. She could end up just walking away if enough of you got together at the right time to change the right policies. It's that easy. And politicians are just people. See? Just people. They look really scary when I joined the political ring, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? And then we sat down for lunch, and I was like, wow, these are all just people that have ideas that may not match yours, and if you have enough friends join that have an opinion, you can change theirs too. It's pretty simple.
If I can add to that really quick. You're one of how many that you just said have openly admitted to cannabis use in Parliament? She's one. 1%. And I'm going to tell you, politicians do not represent you. They are not your friends. They are not your neighbors. And sadly, it's because a lot of y'all don't go out and vote and actually elect people. Support. You don't have, but you can support people that need to be in office. You know, you don't stand idly by while somebody who's going to be bringing the same things to the table. You support people who are actively representing what you want. That's all I'm saying is this is just a minute, you know, she's here when nobody else is, so just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Fiona.
And just on that last one question of Jenny, how can we support you, Jenny? Because you're a good woman, you shouldn't be in jail for 18 years.
Court support. Go to court support, wear a green ribbon. Even if you can't get into her case, you can stand outside with signs. You can call every day. You can lobby on her behalf. Do press releases, let the public know, let your press know that you're not going to tolerate this injustice and that you'll be out there every single day while she is fighting for your rights. That's what you do. You take action.
Thank you. Yeah, and support, we do need support, and I'm not the only one. We have Andrew Catalaris in jail at the moment, we have Tony Bauer in jail at the moment. This is disgusting. And luckily I'm not in jail, I'm on bail. I do have to warn everybody there is a good chance they are coming back for me any time, so I have been watching out the window basically every moment. But some things have happened and it looks like there is a chance they will come back for me too. They want to take us out, that's what they're doing. They're taking out all the healers. They want to stop us proving that it's working, because we're proving all their trials. You know, all these things that they said that we need to prove, we've got to do the trials first. Well, no, we just proved that it works. You know, we've got all these patients that are now still alive from all these conditions that they said it doesn't work for. Well, sorry, but it does. And all these kids are running around now that should have been dead 2 years ago because of it. So if you'd like to support me, I will add that they are trying to bully me because it's a not guilty plea, that I'm not giving in and I'm not just rolling over. I am pleading not guilty. Thank you. Because of that, they have really bullied me, so they started off by doubling my charges, and then when I still decided to continue to plead not guilty, then they withdrew my legal aid. So now I do have to fund it myself, so I do have to come up with $20,000 by November to cover the legal costs. Luckily, I've had enough to cover about 6,000, so thank you very much to those who've already donated. But if anyone would like to donate, I would gratefully accept it. Anyone who knows me knows that I do not like asking for money. I have never taken money for my oil, and it's not something that I feel good about asking for, but unfortunately, if we're going to fight it, you know, and it's something that's not just going to help me. If I was looking after me, I would have pled guilty, and I would have had my charges dropped already last year, and I would have been away, and nobody would know who I am. By fighting it, I'm hoping to set a precedent that everybody else can follow. If I can beat these charges and show that it was medical necessity, then everybody who then comes after me can use those laws and use that precedent to follow. So I'm doing it to help everybody, and so I'm hoping that everybody will chip in. If the whole cannabis community put in $1 each, it would be more than enough to cover. So thank you for those who would like to help. But yes, if you could stand up and just support cannabis, Stop being scared. Stop being scared to say that you are a user of cannabis, that you are a supporter of cannabis. Just stop being scared. Every time we're scared and we hide, we're keeping on going with this stigma that they're trying to beat us down and try and say that there's something wrong with us and that we're lesser than everybody else. And I just want to say it over again, what is different from getting high from cannabis than getting high from alcohol? There is no different, it's just a different substance. So leave us alone for wanting to use a substance that isn't going to hurt us, that isn't going to have any side effects, and that isn't going to have an effect on any other person, because the only person you hurt, or the only thing you hurt when you're using cannabis is the fridge. That's the only thing you're going to attack, is a pizza or the fridge when you're using cannabis. So it's about time we really push this and stop being so scared about being cannabis users.
Hear, hear.
You can find me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. I just go under my name, Jenny Hallam, JNNYHALLAM for Mary. So just follow me on any of those, and I'll put some information up there. I have a PayPal account that people can donate into. I don't use the crowdfunding things because they take too many fees away, so I don't use any of those things, so I have it directly into a PayPal account. But I put up screenshots of the account so people can see what's happening with the money and it's not being spent on shoes and handbags. So thank you very much, everybody. But just keep supporting cannabis, keep supporting all of those who are in jail, those who are fighting charges, and this is the main thing, please stop pleading guilty. Yes. Stop pleading guilty. Every time you plead guilty, you are saying, I was wrong with what I did. Plead not guilty. Fight the charges. It doesn't matter what those charges are. Fight them. We will find a way around them. Stop giving in to these people.
Are you able to use the medical necessity defense out here? And have you entertained using it as a biological necessity defense? With the acknowledgement and the...
They don't have a charter or any kind of...
But you mentioned medical necessity, and with the discovery of the endogenous endocannabinoid system, is that something you can bring to science?
The only thing we can really do is what's called jury nullification. Woo! So we can only, and that's what I'll be doing. I'll be having a jury trial. I'll be leaving it up to the jury to decide. I'm not going to let a judge decide my future. He has no idea what we've gone through, and this is why a lot of people criticise me for being in the media and for doing so much in the media. But I need to pollute the jury pool. I need everybody out there to know who I am and what I did and why I did it. I don't want the first 3 days of my trial spent trying to convince the jury that I did a good thing. I want them to know I did a good thing, and I want them to be able to sit and listen to all of those parents about what has happened with their children and what I've done for them, because that's what's important. And I want all of that evidence to be shown. And do you know what? To be quite honest, I honestly have a real good feeling it's never going to get to trial, because they don't want that evidence coming out. And that's why they're desperately trying to get me to plead guilty. Desperately. I appear in court on Wednesday. This Wednesday coming is my next appearance in court in Adelaide. It's just more bullshit to sort out. My trial starts in February 11th next year, and then it all begins. But like I said, let's see if they actually have the guts to take this through, because I'm not going to give in, and that's what they were hoping for, that I would give in so that this would all go away. That's not going to happen. They know that now. So now it's the ball's in their court. It's either up to them to throw it out, or I'm going to destroy them with evidence.
So please, and we'll share it with everyone we possibly can.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Let's get more eyes on what you're doing. Bravo.
Thanks, Jenny. Really wish you the best of luck there. So, kind of related, I've got a question for Dennis now. I know North America anyway, I think it's in Oregon, maybe some jurisdictions in California, maybe Canada as well. It's dealing with this issue of expunging records after we get to eventually the halo ground of legalisation. So I was wondering what's your thoughts on how we could go about removing people's records after we get legalisation here in Australia?
You just simply go to court and have a judge remove it. That has been legislated, although you still can have a felony drop to a misdemeanor and then eventually go to an infraction, but it's a complicated process. Also, Southern California refers to the fact that a cannabis offense can be dropped after a certain amount of years depending on the severity of it. But the only way to do it is to do it, and I come from the point of view that you're starting off with tyranny to begin with, and now you're trying to regulate tyranny, and you're putting more people in jail in the process. So that's the problem. I talked to somebody today who, because of a charge that he had before, got him a life sentence for a bag full of swag.
Yeah, right. Wow.
In Canada, there's been zero offering of expunging any kind of records involved with cannabis whatsoever. In fact, if you have any records to do with cannabis, you're not allowed to participate in the new cannabis regulations and be a craft grower. Right.
That's another massive issue, isn't it? Because the people who actually know how to grow cannabis are immediately excluded from legal market. I follow that Jodie Emery on Twitter, and she's also always ranting about the Canadian model. She seems like it's not fair, but from where we're looking over here, it's like, well, it doesn't seem that bad. It's getting legalised, but it does seem the activist community over in Canada is not particularly happy with the way the legalisation is going over here. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, since I've been here, I know over 13 people that have lost their jobs and 4 people that are in prison. That was actually the first thing I got when I landed. It's not a joke. Last year, they arrested 300 people in 24 hours. When they come in to take people out, they have absolutely no mercy. Legalization had, for me and the people that are my friends and my associates, has meant being more criminalized than ever before, being kicked out of banks, being banned from institutions, you know, being told you can't do certain things because you've been involved in cannabis. For instance, me trying to get a rental home based on my past. You Google me, you see all these pot TV videos. I had to get my husband to rent the house. And we're not seeing the end to it. Just a few weeks, I think it was like 3 weeks ago, that was Saskatoon that got raided. Yeah, so they're just going and they're going and they're going. And a lot of people, they're saying, okay, I've been raided, they're trying again, and then it gets to a point where they're bankrupt. They got nothing left. And that's kind of been the basic stories. A lot of people are now sitting with lots of criminal charges and no money. Jerry Martin's another one. They've absolutely taken him out. All he really did was just help people.
John Pergonis, my
He's got nothing. Yeah, that's right. John as well with the seeds.
My partner.
It's been a brutal 2 years, and they said that they have They have no plan to stop.
Since Trudeau came to power, this was statistics from last year, but it was 70,000 people that had been arrested on marijuana-related charges. The thing is that they're saying they're paying lip service to
More arrests than we've had in the last 10 years.
Yeah. And Trudeau elected to the head of the task force, the legalization task force, the former police chief, Bill Blair. So the writing's on the wall, and it's very ugly. Because essentially with Canada, just like California, they've put a death choke on craft, they put a death choke on small and mid-sized businesses, but they've done it in a different way. The way they've done it there with the LP system is in order to participate as a cannabis craft maker or cannabis grower, you need millions of dollars to even come to the table. And, you know, of course, we're going to get ingenious, and I think, you know, years coming, we'll figure out a way to create a cooperative and work around their BS once again. But what's happening in Canada is particularly alarming because they're shutting down dispensaries that have been open for 10 years, 15 years, dispensaries that have served their community, dispensaries that have healed people. Miracle upon miracle upon miracle is in their face. And what do they do when they get the first chance to create a legalized market, as Trudeau promised? They attempt to usurp the entire industry away from the Canadian people and put it into the hands of the moneyed few, put it into the hands of the government officials. There's so many government officials that are in the cannabis industry now. I have a list of 60 different government officials that are now shareholders in these cannabis monopolies, like Aurora. And while Aurora skips around the world selling their weed and buying up different global relationships, they're not able under the LP system to serve Canadians properly. They're going to run a deficit while they continue to criminalize craft makers, not allowing them to sell. What Trudeau has done is created an invitation for the black market to flourish. He's continued to criminalize Canadians who have waited very patiently for a way to do business legally.
Mandatory minimums and longer sentences than we've ever seen in the history of Canada. We have been a peace country up until the last 4 years.
They're tripling their profits right now because they're doing the swabbing. They're going to do, you know, every step of the way you're going to be criminalized under this legalized system. So I say beware. Beware, because you guys are about, you know, 10 years, 15 years behind us in terms of stigmatization, and we're watching it, and I'm just saying, I feel for you, my brothers and my sisters, because we're in it together. We're one human global community, and we're fighting in this together, and that's what.
And I think it's time we started an international group where we all start getting together and working together more. I think we can be more powerful if we all join together and start looking at what's happened. I know I got criticised when I first started working towards legalisation that I was working towards medicinal first. But this is the process that we have to follow, and people need to understand that. We are a very, I can't think of the word now, the Christian sort of country, conservative country. And so if we just tried to go for everything and wreck as well, everyone would have just said, no, nothing. So we had to go for medical first, just to show people that it's not going to hurt anybody, the sky's not going to fall in, it's not going to die, no one's going to die from it. And then once you've got that, then rec will follow straight after. But in this country, as soon as we mentioned recreational before we mentioned medicinal, we just got completely pushed away. The politicians wouldn't even speak to us. So we're trying to follow a process, and we know the same thing's happening here that's happening in Canada. The politicians are setting themselves up. In WA, there were a lot of different applications for licences in, and the first one went to a WA politician, and everyone else's was held back until he got his, and then others now will get theirs. Because we know the first few companies that get set up in any industry, in any new country, are the ones that will flourish, and the ones that come after just tend to sort of like peter away.
So you should take notice and actually see what's happening in the United States of America, because our policies impact global policies. Wait for it. Canada just got their first private prisons. But you know, all this talk about all of these organizations and about the industry, does it really impact any one of y'all? Because I want to grow in my house, I want to grow in my yard, and regulations shouldn't trickle to an individual. Let businesses be regulated. But what you do in your yard and what you put in your body shouldn't even be regulated. The government should have no control over you. They should have no access to your body, to your saliva. How dare they tell you to open up your mouth and put this in it? We shouldn't have to worry about regulation trickling to you. Let businesses deal with it, and that's what we're talking about, action. If you let her fall, we all fall. They're going to go after one person. They're going after the pioneers to take off the tip of the spear. And if they get her, they get all of y'all. So we need to be a community. For an industry, we're a community.
And it's not just me. Deb Lynch has just joined us here from MCUA. She's also fighting charges. So, I don't know, do we want Deb to have something to say?
I was just going to introduce Deb there.
Hi everybody. Yeah, I'm fighting charges at the moment as a patient. I'm on 5 charges, including possession and producing. They found 2 litres of oil and a magic butter machine and a sonicator in my house, so I've gone for producing as well. I'm fighting this under medical necessity. We have justification and excuse. Provision in Queensland law. I'm not sure about the other states. I'm only up in Queensland law at the present time, but I know Queensland in particular has a justification and excuse. Basically, unlawful use is without authorisation, justification or excuse. Now, for 4 years, I've tried to get authorisation through multiple doctors. I have multiple serious and life-threatening medical conditions. I should have been able to get prescribed. But because of the regulations and the laws, how they've set them up to protect themselves, I wasn't able to be prescribed. So from my perspective, that now rules out the authorisation section of that. So that leaves me justification or excuse. And in Queensland law, if I have emergent circumstances, be that emergency or extraordinary, that fulfills the classification for the justification or excuse. And in my case, I have a condition that less than 1,500 people have in this country. It's a progressive disease and it's a high pain disease and it's very debilitating. So I fulfil all of that. So theoretically, I have a medical necessity defence. However, the magistrates have tried to argue that I don't. Thankfully, they haven't been able to do that through law. I served subpoenas on all the hierarchy of Queensland Health because from my perspective, I believe I have enough evidence to show that Queensland Health are the ones who are blocking access in Queensland, and it's not politicians, it's actually public servants who have ties to research companies, who have ties to the companies that serve the grants for these people to do their research. And you've only got to scratch the surface, and the amount of conflict of interest is disgusting, absolutely disgusting. So I've had those subpoenas overturned, although I will be appealing those to the district court next. The magistrate in his decision spoke 3 times about me taking my evidence to the CCC, so that's another step that we'll be taking as well to the Crime and Misconduct Commission.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Deb. All the best as well. So, we've already reached the end of the time. So
all I'll say, sorry, excuse me, all I'll say is don't plead guilty. If you get arrested, don't plead guilty. Fight this every step of the way. Make them pay. I'm defending myself. It's not hard. It's not hard. Do it yourself. Do not let them get away with this. Woo!
And we're going to open the floor for some questions. There's just one question, Mike, so put up your hand and we'll come and grab you. Here's one here.
So my question is, how can we change the system? How can we have a different level of governance in Australia? Governance, not government.
To begin with, you've got to start to bring attention to everything that this department, the health department, for example, is doing. Any failure in their them providing you care. For instance, just recently, and I have a chaperone. I have a legal chaperone whenever I see any of my doctors at the hospital now. because they know I'm recording every single consultation. And do that too. Cover yourselves, have proof of what they are saying to you. Record all of your consultations. And when as far as recording laws are concerned, if it is detrimental to your life or your property in any way, you do not have to advise the third party that you are recording. If it impacts you or your safety or your property in any way, you don't have to tell them you're recording. However, Queensland Health are aware I'm recording because I've used it in my affidavit for court. But getting back to your question, you have to harass these politicians. You have to bring to their attention that their government departments are not doing their job, that they are advising you, these people, with self-serving information. And that's what it boils down to. So don't just write to them, don't just phone them, don't just email them, don't just turn up at their office. Do all of it, and do it regularly. And demand your rights as patients, and get your neighbours and your friends and everybody else you can. Turn up at rallies. You know, we put on rallies and we had 50 people turn up. We're lucky if we have 100 people turn up. And there are thousands of people.
Marriage got 3,000 and we got 200.
Exactly. You know, like, you've got to get up, you've got to start speaking out. I know everyone's sick, it's difficult for people to get there, but you know what? I'm on Centrelink. I'm sick, and I get there. So from my perspective, there's no excuse for anybody else. No excuse at all. If you want this, fight for it. Get out there, go to the rallies, harass your politicians, and don't let up.
I also want to add that education is really important. 10 years ago, when I got into the industry ahead of law, it was difficult to come out to my family. I was strict Catholic, and my grandmother particularly. Now my grandmother is 90 years old, and she's using her miracle cream, she calls it, and it healed her arthritis. Don't underestimate. Sometimes it feels so big. Don't underestimate the impact you have if you look around at the 20 closest people to you and say, does everyone in my immediate circle know the truth about their bodies and their endocannabinoid system and cannabinoids and why plant cannabinoids and cannabis are working in the human body? Does everybody understand the science? In terms of my goal, in terms of creating a global community, just so you know, Skunk Magazine is devoted, is a magazine of the people, and is this 2018 and 2019 going to go ballistic in inviting thought leaders globally to speak together in one place, to show that we are one united movement, that is a Renaissance movement, that is a humanitarian movement, that does not want to be the Walking Dead on their pharmaceuticals with their sick system. We are outside of the system, we're creating a new system, we're a new humanity, and we've got to get together, and really it's education. Who in your immediate circle does not know about cannabis and what cannabis can do? Whether they use it or not, they need to know. Your doctor needs to know. Hand your doctor a pamphlet that explains the endocannabinoid system. No one ever taught them. They don't teach them in medical school. This was discovered back in the 80s of last century, and they are suppressing this.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. We're just going to move on.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it's going to start getting louder and louder outside, guys, because the parade and rally is getting closer. So we're probably going to have to, Asia, do you have something to say? And then I was going to ask Dennis to just do a blurb about the cards again.
Perfect. She was saying, how do you change the governments? You really need to join the government, change it to how it works for you as an individual, and get... Exactly. So join it and change it to the system that works for you, because you have to take the tools that they give you and transform them into the right tools, because the tools we have don't work.
And sorry, can I just interrupt quickly before you leave to go out to the cafe? Before you leave to go to the parade, don't forget to go to the cafe. There is some great chutney in there, and there is some great food that they really want to sell. And the chutney, a woman has spent hours and weeks over a hot stove making gorgeous chutney. So just a plug for the chutney.
And if you guys get a minute, please go to the back and sign some cards to Dr. Andrew and to Tony Bauer. At the end of this event, we're going to be mailing them to those people that are currently in jail in Australia.
So please show some love and support and some words of encouragement to them so that they know while we're celebrating this wonderful plant, we haven't forgotten about them.
Thank you all. Thank